Today on the Pet Biz Project, my guest is Tricia Ong, founder and business management advisor at Mintrix Business Advisory. Tricia helps small to medium organisations implement positive changes and improve their efficiency, professionally combining strong commercial knowledge and operational understanding. She has a passion for working with business owners to accomplish both their personal and professional goals by providing tailored solutions to clients and achieving sustainable business growth. Tricia also has a wealth of knowledge and experience working with e-commerce pet brands, and Layla and me and Shy Tiger are just a few examples. Today, Tricia and I discuss the importance of knowing your numbers in your business and how to manage the rising cost of living impacting on many areas of your business now and going forward in the future. We also discuss understanding the difference between cash and profit, building cash buffers and forecasting cash flow, delegating tasks and building a support network, taking breaks and finding balance, differentiating from competitors and targeting a specific niche, seeking help from mentors, advisors, and professionals in areas of weakness, and showing value rather than engaging in price wars with your competitors. This is one episode that you definitely don't want to miss, so drop everything else that you're doing, grab a pen and paper, and listen closely for all the valuable information Tricia has to share with you. Hi, Tricia. It's great to have you here on the Pet Biz Project. So thank you so much for joining us today. I want to just get straight into it. And first of all, start to understand what it is that inspired you to create Mintrix Business Advisory and how it came about that business evolved and how you help businesses.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast. So I've been working in small business advisory for about 2.5 years now. I started out essentially just trying to help small business owners because it was during a time of obviously COVID times, and there was a lot of changing things happening in the industry and the economy. So what we were looking at was to essentially just help people through having a difficult time. My passion for starting the business, though, actually happened because both my parents worked in small business. They both had their own small businesses as I was growing up, and mum and dad were always really very time poor and stressed about work and things like that as well. And I grew up in a working class family, and because of that, I just really want to empower small business owners now to be able to grow their organizations, achieve their business goals, and hopefully find a little bit more time and balance in their life and in their organizations.
Fantastic. And you didn't start in business advisory to begin with, did you?
No, so I actually started my career in the WA mining industry. So I grew up in Perth, and when I first finished university, it was one of those things where, you either go into mining or you go into government, and I landed in mining. For the mining company that I worked with, we started as a fairly small team as well. It was a team of 4, and that organization grew very rapidly. The 7 years that I was there was actually 3 business acquisitions where I was able to basically learn every aspect of the business. And in doing so, you learn about, the finance side and the operations side, all the way to human resources as the company grows and as you get acquired, and we started acquiring businesses, you have to integrate each of those systems and processes. And when I was looking to, take the next step in my career, I was just like, well, I can utilize all of those skills in relation to every aspect of that business to be able to look at a small business and be able to help them achieve better efficiencies and better systems and processes.
Fantastic. And so you now work with e-commerce and you also have experience working with a lot of pet brands. How did that come about?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. So I did start this business during COVID, and one of the main growing industries at that time was e-commerce. We were all sitting at home. We were all online shopping to pass the time, and e-commerce was an industry that was growing at a very rapid rate. And as we were spending more time at home as well, it was people were starting to get pets, and dogs in particular, and spend a lot more time and money on their dogs and their fur kids. So as well as obviously their human kids and family. Yeah. And it was having pets around us during those times that actually I think is what propelled the industry to be one of the growing markets in Australia today.
Yeah. And it's still growing rapidly, isn't it? I know for me, obviously working in the pet industry space as well, we're just seeing that not at the same speed that it was back over COVID, but we're still seeing so many new startups. The inspiration and the ideas and the innovation that's happening in the pet industry space is just mind blowing.
Yeah, definitely. So, especially last couple of years, the pet industry is the number one growing industry in Australia at the moment. Everyone's been kind of really being interested in the pet industry because everyone has seen that growth from, like, as an example, DoorDash was calling me the other day saying, hey, do one of your customers want to be on our platform? And I'm like, pet food? This is on DoorDash.
Yeah.
And, things like that.
You get your treats on demand, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it because it has been such a rapidly growing industry, and that's why there's been a lot more interest and investment in this area, and that's what sparked my interest as well. It was when I started this business, it was to help the businesses that were struggling and that were in rapid growth, because my experience was to be able to plug some of those holes, to be able to find more and better efficiencies, to be able to help a business scale. Because a couple of the main things with scaling is obviously cash flow. Cash is king. We all know that in business, but especially for a growing scaling business, all your resources are constrained, from cash to human resources to time. The list goes on.
And I mean, one of the things I suppose with that rapidly growing pet industry is that I know in the past, a lot of startups, they had to just bootstrap. They just had to, find the funds and keep reinvesting in themselves and trying to get that cash flow up. But there is so much more opportunity now, isn't there, for like crowdfunding and getting investment from outside sources as well. So I suppose that you do coordinating a lot of that with businesses that you work with as well?
Yeah, 100%. So Layla and Me is one of the businesses that I'm working with at the moment. Been working with them for about 2.5 years. Last year, we went through crowdsource funding for a platform called Virtual, and there was a lot of learnings through that as well. And it is definitely one of the areas that people are looking at in terms of funding and investment into their business. It wasn't the right fit at that particular point in time for Layla and Me. We did go through the expressions of interest campaign, but we never launched the actual campaign. And I would definitely encourage businesses who are looking at rapid growth to investigate whether seeking investment is the right path for them. And there's a lot of pros and cons in particular areas, whether you look at private investment, friends and family round, or through crowdsource funding such as Virtual. Then you weigh that up against bootstrapping the business and self-funding it yourself. Obviously, you have a lot more control and ownership, as well as the decision-making process. But there are a lot of pros and positives with external funding, and even internal funding, such as loans and business loans and things like that to finance your assets.
Financing, Yeah, okay. So with your experience with e-commerce and specifically, I suppose, with pet businesses as well, what are some of the key mistakes that you sort of see those small to medium businesses make when they're trying to grow and scale up?
Ooh, what an excellent question. So definitely a lot of learnings from all business owners. And it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. Cash flow, everyone understands that cash is really important. And aside from cash, it's understanding difference between cash and profit. Cash does not equal profit, and that's just a really big one that I try to educate all of my clients on, because just because you have profit doesn't mean you have the actual cash in the bank, and vice versa. There are hundreds of reasons why you might have cash and not profit, or you might have profit and not cash, from things like your inventory holdings to the frequency you pay your suppliers and how long it takes for you to get money through the door from when you sell to a customer. And as you scale and grow your business, to give you an example, it might be, you're starting to sell your products to e-commerce type clients. And through that process, you get paid straight away, or next business day when Shopify or whatever platform you're using actually pays out the funds. But then when you actually start looking at getting wholesalers on board, sure, you could use Wholesale Gorilla or a similar platform to be able to get those funds in fairly quickly, but you might have other wholesalers that request payment terms and request to be invoiced that they'll pay at a later date. And depending on your relationship with them, you might open up a credit account. And then you'll get to a larger scale where you might start working with distributors. So as an example, one of my clients have recently started working with Pet Stock, where, they don't want to pay you for a very long time. And they expect you to carry a whole lot more stock for them as well. So things like that definitely put a constraint on resources that are already quite limited in small business. So, you might have a $10,000 to $20,000 purchase order from Pet Stock, but you're carrying that $10,000 or $20,000 in your cash flow until they pay you at a much later date. But you've already outlaid your resources, you've already outlaid your raw materials and your labor and your rent and everything else in between, and you don't get paid for that until later on. And that just stretches your cash flow. So to be able to rapidly grow and fund your business, you need to either bootstrap it to be able to have that availability to increase your inventory and your cash flow, or you need to be able to find that investment externally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was one of the key lessons that we learned when we first went into business, it was, you can't manage your business off the bank account, just looking at your banks, what's sitting there in your bank account. You have to manage it off your balance sheet and your profit and loss statement and have that detailed cash flow forecast in place so when those dips are going to occur and how you're going to cover them.
100%. And with all your, and I think many of the viewers here are in the pet industry, and there are certain seasons or fluctuations in terms of, like, for example, some of my clients, especially in the e-commerce side, the Christmas period is the largest sales period. You've got other sales periods as well, like end of financial year, Black Friday. And in quiet times such as January and February, you need to be able to have a labor resource to be able to, whether it's scale down your operations, but then to be able to have that flexibility to ramp up as well. So yeah, the balancing your resources is one of, I think, the most critical lessons in business. And cash is just one resource. Your time is another resource. Your physical space is a third resource. And in growing businesses, what I've actually seen is a lot of organizations, you sort of know that, okay, you're going to have to get more labor at a certain point, and maybe that's casual labor or part-timers or maybe even full-timers. And you're going to be able to physically see, okay, this is where they're going to park. So we sort of know how much physical space that needs. But sometimes what we don't think about is the physical space extra pallets are going to take in the warehouse. Yeah. Or, you get a whole stack of packaging in because you've launched a new product, and all of a sudden your warehouse is flooded with packaging, which I've seen multiple times as well. Or you look to outsource to China because all my clients try to keep things within Australia as much as possible. Sometimes with the cost savings, you do look at outsourcing things like packaging to overseas. And throughout that process, it's another cash restraint as well, because you've got to pay for packaging before it leaves China. They're not going to release the goods until you pay for it. You then have to pay your shipping up front. And then on top of that, you're going to be holding a lot more packaging and a lot more raw materials than you actually need, because you might have bought maybe 3 or 6 months worth. Yeah. And in extreme situations, maybe you bought 12 months worth. And that was actually happening during COVID because of all the freight times getting blown out. And, if you're just like, okay, if we're going to add another 3 months to the shipping, maybe we buy double what we actually need right now. And that was a huge a huge cash constraint to a lot of businesses.
And so would your advice I know it's very generalized and not specific, but would your general advice be, developing those cash buffers that allow you to draw on those funds when you're in these situations, and just making sure you're always maintaining those?
Yes. So it's understanding what your seasons are and where you're going to get your highs and your lows, and then having enough buffer for those occasions. So a great place to start is to have a look at your expenses for a 3-month period. So all your overheads, things like your casual labor, that can go up and down depending on how much work you have in. But, all your full-timers and your part-timers, those are overheads that you always have to pay those bills. And then you know what your super is on that. And then you can work out, your other overheads and your expenses, such as utilities, your rent,
subscriptions, asset repayments, and things like that.
So on and so forth. And once you know what your monthly expenses are, more or less, most businesses, sure, it might go up and down if you pay insurance annually or something like that, but more or less you're able to estimate each month. And once you do that, you're then able to have a look at how much you spend in a quarter and have at least that much as a buffer for the hard times. And it was unfortunately the businesses that didn't do that during 1 in 100-year events such as COVID, that you don't have something to lean back on, because you're going, in lack of a better word, like paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, when there's all of a sudden that economic uncertainty and that scarcity and out there, that it's you've got to be able to ride those waves, and you can't do that if you don't have that backup plan, do you?
Definitely. So yeah, you can always, I think it's always important to plan, but plan
Mm.
strategically as well. So
Yeah,
when you look at planning, it's your basic business SWOT analysis, looking at your strengths, looking at your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And
yeah,
specifically on your threats, those are all external to your business. So things like exchange rates. If you're trading internationally in US dollars or any other currency,
yeah,
having a look at interest rates as well. So as the cost of living crisis continues, where your expenses are going up. And through inflation, the economy is growing. I mean, the economy is generally always growing, but at a rapid pace at the moment,
yeah,
where $1 today is not going to be worth $1 tomorrow, and or $1 in a year's time. So if your revenue this year was hypothetically $100,000 or $1 million,
mm.
next year, if all things being equal and your business stayed at that same revenue amount, you would actually find that you're going backwards because your dollar is not worth $1 anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Those expenses are
That's the,
going
yeah,
up.
I think that's the easiest way I can put that one. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's important that all businesses are looking at growth.
yeah. Fantastic. And what other sort of key mistakes do you see small businesses making?
I think in terms of mistakes, it's having that clear plan and reacting. So, as an example, that comes to mind, it would be, if you got faced with a challenge in business, which
Mm.
obviously a lot of business owners get challenged on the daily, you're then
Yes.
having a look at the best way to resolve that. And sometimes actually waiting and having a look at things holistically is
Yeah.
a great way to do it rather than reacting, because then you're making decisions on emotion rather than facts.
Yeah.
So definitely taking that time to work out, do I need to make a decision right this second or
Mm.
this hour or today or this week?
Yeah. And that's why it can be so valuable having a business mentor, an advisor like yourself, is because you can help stop the
Hmm.
business owner from being so emotionally reactive and actually stop and get some perspective on the bigger picture, which can make a huge difference.
Yeah, just that clarity of and just having a sounding board is what I
Mm.
help business owners out with. To give you an example from this week, I had a client who had an employee that resigned. It was quite a critical member of the team,
Yeah.
and they resigned due to personal reasons as they were moving somewhere else, and it was a physical role where you had to actually be there
Yeah.
rather than working from home. It wasn't related to the pet industry, but for it was a trade based business. And what I found was, rather than reacting to, oh, let's just get a seek ad up or let's just look at recruiting, we took the time, we took a step back and had a look at the business as a whole, and then we had a look at, okay, this particular role, could it be delegated to others in the team? So then we could upskill different position descriptions.
Mm.
And does that role actually need to be replaced? And especially if someone's been in that organization for a long time as an integral part of the team, I
Yeah.
find that, they become really good at what they do because you're doing it day in, day out. But when
Yeah.
someone else starts looking at it, maybe there is another way to do it. So yeah, just having a look at it from a more holistic view rather
Yeah.
than a reactive, let's go hire someone because someone quit.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And I
Hmm.
know, I suppose, from my experience working with smaller sort of to medium pet brands, is that sometimes they can put too much strain on themselves by trying to take that leap to having employees within their business when there are roles that could be just delegated to freelancers on Upwork or something like that that can provide them with that support initially, but they don't get locked into having to pay a salary and have a permanent employee when they're maybe just not at that level where they can sustain that cash flow. So, yeah, there are always different opportunities out there to be able to grow and to do it in stages as well. So, no, that's good to know. And what about a support, like while we're on the topic of having employees or freelancers and things like that? How important do you think it is for the business owners to build a support network around them from a very early stage in their business operation?
Yeah, it's so important, especially at the very beginning. I mean, your friends and family, they'll get sick of listening to you and your business at a point in time as well. But
Yeah.
my advice to business owners looking to grow is to build that team of trusted people around you. People are your biggest asset. It's a saying that I've heard time and time again, and I really believe in it and resonate with this, because investing in the right people is essentially the key to your future success, because you can't You can't do it all on your own. If
Yeah.
you are the only person in your business that's able to quote a customer or able to work out your cost of goods sold or to be able to liaise with your suppliers, if you're the only person, you are the bottleneck, or you've essentially just built a job for yourself. You haven't built a business, you haven't built an organization, and you would never be able to take holidays. So
Yeah.
holidays are very important because we don't
They
want to be
are.
burnt
We
out.
need to
We need to find
recharge,
that
don't
balance.
we? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, we need to find that balance. So it's building those systems and the team around you as well to empower your team so that you can actually delegate to them.
Yeah.
One of the main things that I see why business owners don't delegate is because they believe that no one can do it as well as they can. But then it's just like, okay, well, if no one can pack this box as well as you can, does that mean you're the world's best box packer? Or, you know, so what I'm trying to get to is unless you are the world best at something, you
Yeah.
should be able to, and if someone was able to teach you how to do it, you should be able to teach someone else how to do it, unless you
Yeah.
are one of a kind, unique in the world.
It's all part of leadership, isn't it, as well? That just
Yeah.
recognizing that that's part of your role is as you evolve, you need to pass on those things to allow yourself the space to then be able to grow further.
Yes, so that you're able to have a look at things in a holistic way, have a look at all the things that are important in your business but not urgent. That seems to be a category that, we all have a list of things that, well, wouldn't it be great if we found time to do that? Well, you can actually find time to do all those things
Yeah.
if you are able to empower others around you through your leadership to do some of the tasks that whether you can outsource to a third party like a bookkeeper or a social media agency or freelancer or even some
Yeah.
of your administration tasks. So if you're able to get someone to help you in those areas, that would definitely assist. And it doesn't even have to be a freelancer. Maybe you actually outsource your warehouse operations to a third-party logistics company. Yeah, having a look at what's most critical to you in your business and seeing what would be the best way to scale your business. If you weren't doing it, what's your next best alternative? And then just weighing up the pros and cons to see how you do that. Yeah, and then your support network as well. So your support
Yeah.
network's obviously your team and your employees, but it's a little bit more than that as well. It includes any business mentors or advisors that you have. Your support network includes your accountant, but even surround yourself with other business owners who are on that same journey as you and people who share your same values and they're able to encourage you to succeed because you're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days, and it's always great to just have people to lean on and bounce ideas off as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we're such big fans of collaborations and partnerships between brands as well, is because it develops those relationships where you can lean on each other and support each other to grow your businesses together. And it just helps to take the burden off that you're doing it all on your own. So I think it works very well, especially with pet brands as well. There's so many opportunities there.
Yeah, and business owners wear a lot of hats, and the more hats you're wearing, the more things that you're juggling, and then the more stress that
Yeah.
causes in terms of like just dropping the ball somewhere along the way. And if you are working in that sort of space, you don't have the headspace to be creative, to look at the bigger picture, to look at your 5-year plan, and any particular wild ideas that you have in your business as well.
And that's why holidays are so important, or taking, even if it's just factoring in time away from your business throughout the week, is it's quite often when you step away that you get the most inspiration and ideas about how to solve problems going forward.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to extract yourself from all of that noise. And
Yeah.
sometimes the best strategy planning and brainstorming will happen in a separate location. So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be an office, it could be on a beach, it could be in a holiday, like
Yeah.
wherever it is, just to step away from the day to day to have a look at things from a more strategic angle.
Yeah. Yeah. I find even just going to a cafe and just taking myself out of I work from home. So just going to a cafe and
Yes.
just where it's a more
Mm.
relaxed environment, you can sit there, and I find it good for brainstorming around how to solve a problem. So it's tapping into those things that really help you to solve problems and get more creative. So that's fantastic. So obviously there were a huge amount of startups that happened over the COVID period, especially in the e-commerce pet space, like we were saying. It's been very challenging for some of those small businesses, I suppose, to feel like they can stand out and be heard and be seen online, because there is so many, businesses now operating in that space and so much noise online. What's your advice for those that are trying to grow and maybe just feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of others in the operating the same space as them?
Well, I think the first thing is to congratulate yourself, pat on the back for actually doing it and actually, turning your dreams into a reality. So I think that's your first step. The first step is to actually decide that you're going to start a business and what your business is going to do and the value it's going to provide to your customers.
Yeah.
And then after that is to start with having that strategic plan. So start with a business plan if you don't already have one. And if it's a bit daunting to write a 30-page business plan, don't. Start with a one-pager or start with just some dot points. And we have a whole range of templates that we can provide, but you can find templates online as well. And just start to jot your ideas down on paper, because once it's on paper, you can then sort of see, okay, is this a good idea, or is this an opportunity worth pursuing, or do we adjust that so that it's more relevant to the current times? And once you kind of have ideas down on your business plan, you can then have a look at ways to, tap into any potential opportunities or mitigate any risks that are potential threats to your business. And as part of your business plan, you should have your financial plans as well. So ensuring that you're able to build enough profits into the business for sustaining growth in business. Like, profit's not a naughty word. We have to build profit into the business to be able to allow for growth.
Yeah.
And sometimes business owners, especially as they're first starting out, I do see a little bit of hesitancy in that, because they're like, oh no, I don't want to, but at the same time, so understanding your numbers, knowing what gross profit versus net profit is, understanding cash isn't equal to profit, putting money aside to pay for things like your taxes and any other overheads and so on and so forth. But in terms of coming back to how to stand out from the crowd, it's to being able to speak to your target market and knowing who your target market are, your customer avatar, who that profile is, and ensuring that all your products and services are tailored to that specific niche or that specific market, so that you're differentiating yourself from your competitors. So there's the whole shotgun approach, where you grab a shotgun and see what hits, versus the sniper approach, which, you're very targeted towards a particular individual or niche category. And I would say that definitely to stand out, you need to be niching in your particular category. And especially if you've got, limited funds and whatever else, or limited resources, you can't go wide. You need to be quite targeted in your approach. And there's obviously different strategies and tactics in doing that, whether that's part of your social media plan or your overall marketing plan. Yeah, and if you've got any knowledge gaps that you have, look at your own personal development to be able to fill those gaps, either learning that yourself or adding people into your professional network who can guide you on those things. So look, if finance isn't your cup of tea, then lean on your accountant or lean on your bookkeeper, or get an advisor who can help you in those areas. And vice versa, if marketing's not where your strengths are, have a look at outsourcing that to someone else as well.
Yeah, that's good advice. And it's so difficult, I suppose. I think 70% of households, I think it's even more now, have pets. So you don't need to target everybody. There is way more business there than what you can sustain. So I agree. You just have to become very targeted with who you're here for and show them how you are different from others, those unique selling points, and just laser focus on those people. So it's always gets much greater results than having a scattergun approach. So
yeah, definitely. And just to stand out from the noise. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to enter into like a price war with your competitors as well, in terms of just cutting pricing just to win the work. Or win the business. So what you actually need to do is to differentiate yourself. That's so important, to be able to stand out from the crowd, from your competitors, so that your customers know why they are buying from you, and have all your values and all your business goals aligned, so that your customer can clearly see where your values are.
Yeah, it's not worth cutting your prices. It's more about showing them where the value is and purchasing from them over and above somebody else. So that's great. So as a challenge that we all experience as business owners, and it never goes away, is like time management and just being able to stay on top of everything that we need to be doing. I know over time we tend to get better at managing our time, but it can sort of get thrown out of whack when we have new campaigns or new growth that we're trying to achieve. Do you have some time management tips that you use or that you recommend to people that you speak to?
Yeah, so I've actually done a couple of webinars on time management. I think there's one on my website at the moment under the
Fantastic.
events that we've done recently. But it's number one would just be to delegate. So I mentioned this earlier in today's podcast, but delegating is key because you can't do it all yourself. You become the bottleneck where your suppliers are waiting for you, your customers are waiting for you, your employees are waiting for you. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, why am I so stressed? And why is my phone keep ringing? Well, it's because you become the bottleneck. So
Yeah.
you need to delegate. And if it's a decision that you don't need to make, you need to empower others to make that decision for you. So, some things are quite minor, like, anything basically less than $100 decision in your business, you would want to empower your employees to be able to make that call because
Yeah.
that's just taking up your time and resources. And like you trust your staff. Well, you should trust your staff, otherwise you shouldn't hire them in the first place. We
Yeah.
trust our employees to make the best decision given all the information they have. And so you can set whatever dollar value you want to it, but then empowering them to be able to make certain decisions or buy certain things for to be able to reimburse from the company, that sort of stuff that you don't need to be the one buying photocopy paper or buying extension cords or whatever it is in your business that needs the operations to keep running. You need to just empower others to help you. We talked about delegating in terms of skill sets and having a look at whether it's the finance side or whether it's the marketing side. So just to start, I would list out any and every task that you're currently doing. Have a look at if that actually needs your input and why it needs your input, and then to see if that can be made into a process or a procedure so that someone else can do it. Delegation is just a skill. So similar to muscles, the more you use them, the stronger they become. So the more you delegate, the better you get at it. You just need to start delegating and start offloading some of the things off your plate and just start small.
Yeah. I mean, we found what really worked for us in our business was Google Sites, setting up a Google site, which is like an internal intranet
Yep.
site. And it's just everybody's responsibility to make sure whatever you do, put a little system around it and record a little Loom video on the task so that if somebody's sick or if somebody goes on holiday or if we all of a sudden lose a resource and we need to bring somebody new in, that it's all there and just easy to pick up and run with. And it just gets it out of your head. You feel like
Yes.
there's systems there around what we do. It's not just down to the individual. So that
So
helped us.
processes, procedures,
Mm.
systems, SOPs, like there's a
Yeah.
million and one ways that you can call it, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you just need instructions for
Yeah.
people
It's
if
putting
you're not there.
structure around everything that you do, isn't it? So
Yeah.
fantastic. And any other time management tips?
The next one would be to, I think, break the task down. So have you ever had that situation where there's this task on your to-do list and you write it down and then you actually don't get around to doing it? So the next day you create a new to-do list and you kind of just move that task over. And
Yeah.
then next week, the exact same thing. You're just like, oh, I didn't get around to that one. Let me just move that over. For me,
Yeah,
that
bit of
was,
avoidance.
yes, okay, procrastinating, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. For me, that was launching my website. And
Yeah.
it took me the better part of 6 months to do this, but it was just one of those tasks that was just so big. You're just like, oh my God, where do I start? I've got to think about the layout. I've got to think about what I want on each page. I've got to think about the images. I've got to think about the blogs. Got to think.
Yeah.
There's a whole heap of stuff that goes into it. And a saying that I use quite often is, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. So breaking these large tasks down into smaller pieces, there's no way I could have found 8 hours in a day to work on my website, but I could
Yeah.
find 10 minutes here and there. So it's just giving yourself these little tasks that you're able to do that work towards your big task. And it's the same thing with your goals. So if you have a really big goal, breaking that goal down it might be an annual goal. You want to break it down to a quarterly goal and then breaking it down further into a monthly goal. And
Yeah.
then from there, what can you do each week to be able to work towards that monthly goal? So breaking tasks down is a way to be able to get through that to-do list, especially with these larger and more difficult tasks that are hard to do.
Yeah. And I suppose, with the popularity and the invention of, artificial intelligence and Chat GPT and things like that we now have available to us.
Mhm.
I mean, personally, I can see how that helps me to operate more efficiently in my business and allows me to be able to get more time back. But you've first of
Mhm.
all got to invest that time in understanding how to use these tools, don't you, to be able to leverage them?
Yeah, so it definitely helps with time management in terms of some of the things that you can automate or do. And
Mm.
it is a rabbit hole. So I am guilty of this myself, where I've spent a little bit too much time playing with it in the early days to kind of uh, get the most out of it, I think.
Yeah.
But once you do that, it was a good investment of time because then I was able to work out what are the best prompts to be able to ask ChatGPT or any other artificial intelligence program to be able to
Mm.
get the best answers and solution. So it's one of those things that you do need to invest a bit of time into learning the capabilities of the system.
Yeah.
For those in the audience who haven't heard of ChatGPT, it's essentially Google on steroids.
Yeah.
You're able to just ask a question or give it some instruction, and then ChatGPT will actually respond to you by typing out, you can actually see it thinking and typing out
Yeah.
what your answer is. So in the past, you would be putting a question into Google, and you might get the top 5 websites in relation to what your keyword was.
Yeah.
But what ChatGPT does is it saves you time from having to look through multiple websites to be able to get that solution. So an example might be, what are some keywords in relation to the word drink bottle? And then if you type that into ChatGPT and you ask it for 20 different keywords, it's actually going to spit out 20 keywords for you. But if you try to do that into Google, you might have to look at 3 or 4 different websites to be able to get that same result. So
Yeah.
it's just that is time saving. Learning how to use it efficiently is probably one of the things that you need to invest the time to be able to leverage off that.
Mm.
But I use ChatGPT quite frequently in my business as well. It's fantastic for brainstorming. It does have a few limitations, such as
Mm.
if you ask it a question and it actually doesn't know the answer, it might double down on incorrect stats and things like that. So keep it to
Yeah.
things that are generic. What I found is it is quite generic. It won't understand your brand voice, and
Yeah.
it won't understand your personality. So you just need to tweak it a little bit, add some of your own words or
Mm.
add some of your own language to be able to sound less robotic.
Yeah, it doesn't have that emotional intelligence that humans bring to the table, does it? But I
Yeah,
think
not yet, not yet.
no, not
It'll be a
yet. Well,
scary
it
time.
won't be far from it. But I think one of the just simple tools that I use it for is like with our podcasts, like just putting the transcription of the podcast in and it will summarize the key points from the podcast for us. So, it just, whereas that was maybe something we'd have a freelancer do in the past, we can just quickly and easily put that through. It takes us 5 minutes sort of thing. So it's just making business more efficient where you're able to, get those lower priority tasks or the time consuming tasks that don't need expertise and just get them done more efficiently, which is good. So, Tricia, just one final question was regarding the increasing costs and inflation and interest rates, everything that's just throwing bigger and bigger challenges to small to medium business owners at the moment, just making life just that little bit harder to operate efficiently and profitably. Do you have any, things that you're seeing with the businesses that you work with, advice that you could give around, those challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, so expenses, they're just going through the roof at the moment. Everything from electricity costs to the price for Australia Post and freight to, employees. There was a rise in minimum wages in July. Australia Post went up 9.5% in
I
July as
know.
well,
Yeah.
which was a huge hit to e-commerce businesses. So yeah, everything across the board, and they're quite large expenses as well. A
Yeah.
couple of months ago, the prices that were soaring were things like meat and raw materials and international freight, but now it's literally every expense from rent to packaging to like raw
Yeah.
materials. Every single part of the business is starting to be more expensive,
Yeah.
which means that unfortunately costs do need to be passed on to consumers. And it's just balancing that in terms of having your customers understand why certain things the cost needs to rise. But at the same time, like, your customers will be feeling the pinch too through your cost of living, which means that consumer spending might be down a little bit. And as a result, business confidence is down. So what I would recommend is for businesses just to be prepared for any of these risks that are going to happen in business. So if you can foresee, with the consumer spending and the business confidence, what can you do to mitigate those risks? With the pricing increasing with Australia Post, unfortunately, unless you decide to wear that cost yourself, you need to pass that onto the customer. And I would strongly recommend to be passing costs on as well, because otherwise it's going to erode all of your profits, and it becomes a very slippery slide if your business starts trading at a loss. So you do need to be building sufficient profits into the business to allow for growth. And like I said before, $1 today is not going to be $1 tomorrow, which means that whatever your turnover or your revenue is last financial year, you need to make sure, just to keep up with inflation, if all your costs are going up 9.5% or similar, you need to be going up 9.5% or similar.
Yeah. And I mean, it's something we talked about with Ariane from Bell and Bone, was the communication that she did around that price increase and how that was done so well in terms of just, an email to her audience, but really, and social media and things like that as well. But just the depth that she went to and the transparency she went to around why she had to increase the cost of things and how difficult it had been making that decision. I think the communication is key. I don't think anybody, any customers wouldn't get the fact that costs are going up, and so businesses have to pass that on. It's more about taking the time to be transparent around why you're doing it and what the impact is for you with those rising costs. Another one that we see businesses struggling with is their team, hiring new people. A lot of employees and freelancers are looking for much higher fees now for their support because their cost of living is going up. They need to charge more for their services. So I think it's just all of those things impacting on businesses are challenging. But like you said, I agree. You have to pass that on to your customers. Otherwise, why are you in business? You're not in business to, not make a profit. You won't survive.
Yeah. So I would just want to reiterate the importance of strategic planning. So what you can't do is you can't, every single time you get a higher invoice, to increase your prices. That's just going to annoy your customers. That's just going to, it's not sustainable. So what you need to do is you need to plan, forecast, and be able to foresee. Work with your suppliers on, the frequency that they're increasing their prices to, and maybe having that built into some of your pricing. So you don't want to be entering price wars with any of your competitors as well, because that's just a lose-lose game.
Yeah. So, Tricia, before we finish up, can you tell me what's next for you and Mintrix Business Advisory Services?
Yeah, so we're just going to continue our mission to help small and medium business owners to achieve their goals. So it doesn't really matter if their goals are to grow and expand their business, or maybe they're looking to exit the business, and anything in between as well. We're experienced in businesses across a range of industries. So we work in retail, we work in e-commerce, we work in manufacturing and exporting. So our team, we're able to create that strategic plan to be able to take businesses to the next level. We're helping the business owners that we work with to bring their ideas to life. So anyone who's listening, if you've got an idea in your business, you're looking to turn it into a reality. Maybe you've launched your business and you're looking to grow it to the next step. Maybe you're just doing B2C only and you'd love to tap into the B2B market. Or whatever your idea is, maybe you want to launch the next big thing in the pet business or the pet industry. So if you've got an idea and you haven't quite articulated and put a plan in place for it, reach out, see if we can help you with developing that plan and a bit of roadmap forward. I think one of the biggest challenges that small business owners face is cash flow. So what we've done is we've created a free cash flow ebook to be able to help business owners to manage their finances. So you can find that at our website, which I think will be in the show notes, which will be www.mintrix.com.au. And you can download a free copy of our cash flow ebook to help small business owners.
Fantastic. I've read that free ebook as well from you. And it doesn't matter where you're at in business. Sometimes it's good to just sit down and go over the fundamentals again, because it does quite often spark inspiration around, I could be reducing expenses there, or I could be doing this to, forecast my cash flow more accurately. So it was a great free ebook. So I think, I'd advise anybody to go and jump on and download that. So that's great. And we will include the link to that page on your website in the show notes as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
That's okay. If anybody wants to reach out to you personally, Tricia, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so they can jump onto our website, which is has our details on there as well on the contact us page, and we do complimentary sessions as well. If anyone's interested in taking us up on that offer, please do reach out. And I'm on LinkedIn as well, which is can be included in the show notes.
Fantastic. And that's huge value for you to be offering some, a free chat with people to, just jump on and discuss their situation initially. So that's great. I want to thank you so much for your time today, because it's been such valuable information and knowledge and experience that you've provided to our audience. So thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. It's been great fun actually doing this podcast. And yeah, we can't wait to see it go live.
Well, there you have it, an unbelievably informative interview with Tricia Ong, Creator and Business Management Advisor at Mintrix Business Advisory. If you're a small to medium business owner and you feel that what Tricia was talking about resonates with you, or if you have any questions and would like to connect with her, feel free to use the links in the show notes below. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.